Welcome to episode 2 of Nice and Sunny, the podcast. I'm coming at you today from Bulgaria, actually Sofia, to be precise. It's the first time I'm in Bulgaria. The last time I spoke to you was in the Isle of Man. And the topic that we had there was minimalism, and it was mainly about me babbling on my own about having reduced all my belongings to just 3 bags, still trying to reduce it even more. And first I thought that the next topic could be digital declutter, but I didn't get a lot of feedback on that. So I thought, let's do something else that I feel comfortable with talking about. And by the way, I'm still in the process of doing the digital declutter, and maybe at some point I can give proper feedback when it comes to that. The next topic I felt like was really interesting is the topic of home. Considering that I'm traveling so much and I don't actually have an actual home anymore. I call myself homeless, which causes a whole set of different problems when you start talking about it. But having this conversation a lot with people say, I couldn't do it, I need my place, and I completely get that as well. So I thought this would be an interesting topic to talk about in the second episode. And this is going to be an episode with my first ever guest as well. I will get her into the call a little later, before I give some background on what home does mean to me in a way. I think the thing is always like, what is normal anyway, right? So first I thought to get a guest on who has a completely different view on it, but then I thought, why not take somebody who actually is very similar to me there, and we can just explore a little bit why we are this way and not how most other people are. But then again, there's nomads, like actual nomad tribes in the world. So what is normal anyway, right? But maybe we get to that at the end of this podcast and shed some light on normal. So when I think of home, so for me, I was born in Hamburg, and I grew up on a tiny village next to Hamburg for the first 4 years of my life, before we then moved to my grandparents' house for about 9 months while our actual new house was built, and that was more near Hanover, the whole thing. So from an early age, I was traveling right away, and I had this feeling of, okay, what's next? What's the next stop? What's the next stop? So by the age of 5, then we moved to the actual home, which was going to be my home until the age of 20 that I moved out. And that is basically the place that molded me as an adult, right? So the thing is, when somebody says home, I remember this place. So it's like that street and that house specifically comes to my mind when somebody says home. So it's not even anything nowadays, like, because I don't have a home, right? So it's like my parents are divorced, my brother lives somewhere else, so this place still exists, but it's not the same, right? Because it's not actually our family house anymore, our family home. So I wouldn't go back there. It doesn't feel like there's anything for me to go to, because it wasn't the house, right? So if I hear home, it's the memory of a place or a thing or a time in my life, but it's not an actual place that exists nowadays. I hope that makes sense. It's a bit of a weird one. And nowadays, if I say I'm going home, I don't even know what I mean, because it's either home to Germany as a whole, because that's where I came from. Now, if I say home, is it Dublin, because this is where my base is. So, like, in a lot of senses, you can probably use the term base rather than home. So this is more or less my definition. And if you follow me on Facebook, for example, you know that every time I check into a new place where I'm staying at, like a hotel or something, I take pictures of it, and then I say, this is my home for 4 nights or 2 nights or whatever. And it's actually true. It's usually where I am at that point. So I changed the saying of wherever I hang my hat as my home to wherever I charge my phone as my home. So that's like my little interpretation of that, and I'd like to be quoted for that because I really like that. But yeah, so before we get to my guest, Clara, I give a little disclaimer here because we're both, Clara and I are both German speakers. Me being German, she's Austrian, so we could do the whole thing in German, but obviously we want to have more people understand what we're talking about. And also, as a disclaimer, we're not going to go too much into detail, if at all, on the German word for home, which has a lot of different meanings. So it's a bit like if you take the English word home and translate it into German, we have probably 3 or 4 different words, and having like an Austrian, there might be even completely different words for that again, that gives this term a lot of different nuances that you wouldn't have using the English word home. But if we go into that detail, I think a lot of the listeners would be quite bored. So I decided to just basically, as a disclaimer, leave out any German discussions here. And I'm also anglifying our names anyway. So I'm calling myself Christine instead of Christine, and I'm saying Clara instead of Clara. So just a quick background how I know her. We both know each other from the poker world, and for those of you that are listening and don't know much about poker in general, you can play cards online, right? That's one way, playing it on the internet and playing with people all around the world, just clicking buttons. Or you can play poker actually at a table with cards and chips with other humans sitting around the table and interaction. And if you play poker like that, you need a dealer, right? So somebody who shuffles the cards, who hands out the cards, who handles all the chips, and makes sure that the winner gets their chips and all this, and do all the math that most players can't do. So having been in the poker industry now for over 10 years, and as a player and working in the industry, I've been to a lot of poker events, and I met a lot of the staff from the events, a lot of the players, obviously, and a lot of the dealers. And Clara is actually not just any of the dealers. She's one of the most recognizable dealers out there, and especially on the European circuit. So if you watch any live streams or TV shows, you might find her at the TV table dealing cards, looking friendly and pretty. And it's always a delight to meet her afterwards once work is done in a bar and chat and catch up. And she has a very interesting life, traveling around mainly in Europe to play to deal poker. So I thought she would be a very, very good guest to have on my first duo podcast. So without further ado, Clara, would you like to introduce yourself, maybe by telling us what you feel and think when you hear the word home?
Hi. Home. Yeah. I feel a lot like that, like you in that way. Home is a place that I remember, but it's actually now it's a house in Austria somewhere that like nobody's gonna know the place. I'm not gonna name it. And there's actually a company in there now, so it's not even anybody else's home. So yeah, it's just a place that I remember, but it's not really there anymore. But I do like the home is where I charge my phone. uh, and a lot of times I charge my phone from an external phone charger, so sometimes home's nowhere. Totally makes sense to me. Yeah, it's very similar to your expression of home, I guess.
Awesome. So you're originally from Austria, and you're not telling us
Yes.
the town or the village. And then did
Yeah,
you?
sure. Sorry, I was born in Vienna,
Okay.
but home for me is actually not Vienna because every weekend we were out in the countryside and I enjoyed that place more when I was a kid. Obviously, there's more to do. There's like the whole garden and deers in the garden, and it was just nicer as a kid than the city. And yeah,
I
that's why.
totally get it. Like I grew up in the countryside, and we sometimes found deer or like rabbits in our garden. So it's the growing up in the country is a beautiful thing for sure. So where are you right now?
Right now I'm in Galway.
All right.
Yeah, I'm at actually at my sister's place. So I'm at someone's home. Staying here with my dad because my sister actually is in the hospital, so it's a whole other story. But she's getting better, so we're staying at her place for now. And the next stop is gonna be Paris, and I have no idea where I'm staying there. But that's another story, I guess.
So were you originally in Galway for a poker event as well, or just to visit family, basically?
Oh no, that was just to visit family. I did contact Nick O'Hara because there is some tournament right now close to Dublin, but yeah, I'm not sure. I just contacted him. Maybe I'm gonna work there for a few days, but I don't think it's
Right.
really worth the travel. So I'm like, nah.
So how long have you been a dealer? Because I was trying to figure out like when we met the first time, but I can't really.
Oh, I'm not sure either. I know when I started dealing in 2009.
Okay.
And I started dealing EPTs 2011, which I like my first EPT was one of the last EPTs Kremser still did, if anybody's listening who actually knows. But and really got into it when Toby Stone took over, and then I got into more EPTs. And since basically the four or five last years, I've been doing all of them.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool.
So we might have met the first time like 7, 8 years ago or so.
Yeah, it's possible
Yeah,
for sure.
cool. So, like thinking back, like it's mainly European stops that you go to, right? So thinking back, what was like? I mean, it's difficult as obvious. I know it's a difficult question, but like, that, what do you feel like was like a really interesting place to go to work and deal?
Well, because you said mainly European, obviously the most interesting would be something that's not European. And it was kind of a one-time thing. I went to Panama once.
All
So
right.
that was really cool because I stayed, obviously, because you're already going there, I stayed an extra week and with some friends, and we rented a car and it was really cheap. And we went to, I don't know, San Blas, which are these beautiful islands with white beaches and just
Yeah.
like amazing nature. So that was probably the coolest stop, even though the money was like, well, it was Panama, so it wasn't too good. I had to fly over there and pay for the flight, but it was cool. I could cover my expenses, so I could see Panama for free, which is amazing. Anyway,
So at the events, then usually you share like accommodation with some of your colleagues, right?
yeah, yeah, we do. They used to. Well, it depends. It's always they send us emails and then they tell us if they sort the accommodation for us or if we sort it ourselves, and then if we get money for it or not, and blah blah. All this
Yeah.
organizational. But right now, it's usually all of the time we sort it ourselves, and because it's mainly the same team since a couple of years, you have your friends and you usually sort it with them through Facebook or something.
Yeah. So was it like all these last couple of years that you had like your base, let's say, if we don't want to use the word home,
Um,
your base in Vienna, and then you basically went to all these events? Is that how your life looked like?
Exactly. I had my like I called it home base
Home
basically
base, yeah,
with
exactly.
and it was still a home because I just basically gave up my home like 2 3 weeks ago. um but I did have it, but the last year I've been traveling so much that I looked at my calendar basically, and I was like, why do I pay rent?
Yeah.
I'm never home. It doesn't make any sense. So I just said, okay, I'm just gonna call my landlord, cancel my apartment because this is ridiculous. I can spend all this money on flights and bus tickets and trains. Why the hell would I pay rent? What am I doing? So my family thought I was crazy because they're all a little more normal than me. and but now that I did it, they actually think it's really cool, and everybody just asks me questions. So how and what? And so everybody's excited for me, but they're a little scared for me as well because I
Yeah,
want to do some crazy
I
stuff.
always have a feeling that most people because using the word normal there, right?
Yeah.
Because this is what we've been taught, right? We're being taught to like do school, leave school, live in apartments, then at some point find a partner, move into a house, have children, have a bigger house. You know, it's like the normal way how this should go, right? But then every time you tell people that you're doing it differently, they get really interested and go like, so, but how do you do that? So it's almost as if everybody has sort of the wish of also having this other alternative life, but they don't really dare doing it. So they want to see us live it first, and then maybe learn from it. Is that a feeling you got as well?
Yeah, for sure. It feels like you're the test dummy or something. You're like, okay, let's watch her. If she doesn't die, I'll try it too. But I mean, I looked at some YouTube channels as well before I did it myself, because it's like it's interesting, and then you're like, well, I can do that. It's okay.
And the thing is,
and you get motivated.
Yeah, this life just always exists anyway, right? So you can always go back. So it's what happened to me in a way when I left Germany in 2005 with just a backpack, and the plan was to just travel the world and don't have a home anymore. It was actually already back then my plan, but then I got a really good job, and I was like, okay, I go for that, because it's something to people think about and want to do anyway, and I really liked the thought of it. And suddenly I was back into the whole buying furniture, buying way more clothes than I should have, and suddenly I was stuck again in the normal life, until it took me about 5 or 6 years that I realized I was very unhappy and I wanted to go back. So I'm now back to being a nomad for a bit over a year, like not having my own place and not paying bills and not having to, like all the or like the TV, what's it called, like the TV license stuff, and because I just do not have a home, So it's nice to know that exactly what you said. You save that money and then spend it for more travels,
For sure.
So you said like 2 or 3 weeks. You now did you start the process? So where are you right now? What's the current status?
No, I already I gave back the keys to my apartment on the 9th of October. So that's my status. I still paid rent until the 15th of October. But as I left early, I figured I might as well give my keys back early, because it's not like I can do anything with them. So yeah, I left, and the only thing, I'm not quite there yet, because I do have a little storage unit in Vienna, which still has some of the stuff that I should probably still get rid of.
How much?
But it's really
is
small.
that?
It's like I asked for the smallest one they had, so I couldn't go any smaller. And it was 1 square meter, and it's 3 meters high, so it's like 6 square feet.
Yeah.
I don't know how high. What is it, like 9 foot high or something like that. But yeah, it's actually holds a lot of stuff. I still kept like my snowboard and stuff like that, but I feel like I shouldn't. But I'm thinking that it's probably gonna end up being a situation that I will go back to the storage unit, and then there will be some boxes that I open all the time because I need stuff and I put stuff back. And then there will be some boxes who just are there and I never look at them. And then at some point I will just throw them away. And at some point the goal is to get rid of the unit as well and just have like 1 or 2 suitcases, and that's it, because you really don't need that much stuff.
That's it. And I think it's a good plan to have like those boxes, and if you don't open them for like a couple of months or something, just remove them. There's however the thing that I thought as well, because you have summer, because especially if you live in Europe, or like let's say mainland Europe, and you have proper seasons, you need winter clothes and summer clothes, right? So
and winter clothes take so much space.
Exactly. so that's the thing. Like, I think if you would live in like Ireland or something, there's no proper seasons anyway, so you can have the same clothes all year round. But so there are simply clothes that you should keep for the winter or for the summer and so on. So I think there's a little bit of something you just can't get around unless you're willing to just buy things new every year. But like especially like winter coats are very expensive to do.
For sure.
Yeah, so it's an interesting procedure there. And it's like if you say like a snowboard, for example, obviously if you have things that you can rent, and that's usually possible with a lot of things. It's just the attachment to it, right? It's like it's probably you have some memories with that.
Yeah, I learned snowboarding on that
Yeah.
snowboard. Because I only like I learned skiing when I was 4 because I'm Austrian and that's what we do.
Yeah, of course.
But snowboarding I only learned with 16, so I still can drive the same one. It's, yeah,
Right. And how do
fun.
you do it with because it's like I know that you I mean you're a poker dealer, but I'm not sure how much you actually play poker. I know you do play the games and you're a content creator on different channels as well. How do you do that now with like normally you would need a computer setup. If we were just talking about like a microphone, camera, maybe. How do you deal with those material things?
Yeah, that's actually something I'm also still trying to figure out. I did get rid of my baby, my computer, my awesome computer. I gave it to someone, a friend of mine, though, that I know he's gonna use it. Um, I am still thinking. I have a MacBook Pro 2015, and I'm thinking about going to Apple because they have this exchange
Yeah.
program, and I just want to exchange it for a MacBook Air with kind of the same specs. They should have that, right? Because it's just so heavy.
That's the thing. I'm using it. They are not very strong when it comes to video, unfortunately. At least the one that I have, it gets really hot. But otherwise, it's definitely a good alternative.
Yeah, I have to still think about it, but I just want something lighter.
Yeah.
Like, even maybe I should go back to Windows. I don't know. It's just annoying if you have an iPhone and then you have a Windows computer. They're just
Uh,
not friends. It's just like, and I don't want to change everything. I like my iPhone. Yeah. So the computer setup, I still like. I have an awesome microphone. It's also in the storage unit, like a big one, the blue Yeti, the big one. But like, I'm not taking that with me. It's
yeah.
just a huge. It's like a baseball, basically.
Yeah.
And
I
I'm
think I know the
running
one.
around with it.
I
Yeah.
was trying to find out solutions for that as well. Like when you want to do any kind of recordings on the move, because I'm going to have my big round the world trip come up, and I'm definitely
Mm.
not going to carry a microphone with me. But as I said, right now I'm using my normal iPhone headphones, and as long as that is still fine, then I'll just work with that.
Yeah, for sure. I do know there's this Rode mic that you can just plug into your phone like directly,
Oh
and
yeah,
it's just there. So that works for sure. I was thinking about buying this like 70 euros, I think.
okay,
But
yeah,
yeah, it depends. There's a few
there are
options.
solutions. So
Yeah.
how is now your plan? You said you're going to Paris next, but are you? Because I remember you
Yeah.
were talking about getting a van and actually living the van life.
Oh
So
yes. Now
so
I'm living the nomad life. No, the van was it's still something I want to do at some point, but I realized that if I want a van that's not going to break down tomorrow, maybe, I should first save some more money so I can buy like something that's more expensive. Because the one I can afford now, it's kind of a gamble. It has like 2 to 300,000 kilometers,
yeah.
and then you never know how far this is still gonna go, and I actually want to go far. So, and then I realized that flying is really cheap anyway if you only have to book one-way tickets, and and I was like, maybe I'll just fly for a while, and then I know the spots already, and it's easier with the car as well because I kind of have to scope out where the camping sites are and how
Right.
to. So maybe just do some more research
And then there's
first, and then
obviously upkeeping, taxes, petrol, yeah,
exactly.
all the additions to that, insurance. It's just like in a bit what we were just before we started recording, we were talking about basically having this iterative approach to things. So in theory, if you say you want a car that brings you very far, in theory, it would probably be a good idea to just get some car and just get it started and then later exchange it to a better one, right?
Yeah, I know. No, I downsized on the car as well. First, I looked for like a bigger car,
Yeah,
like the normal van life car, like a Ford Transit or
yeah,
a Mercedes Jumper, like the typical. And then I found like a small. It was a VW Caddy, like really small thing, and it also was like made for living in it. And then I realized, like, why do I actually don't need that big Titanic car. I could just buy like a small one. I don't have that much stuff anyway. The small one is easier to drive, easier to park. It's more inconspicuous. People don't really think that I live in there, which
Yeah.
is good. So I can park in normal parking spaces. And yeah, so I definitely downsized on the car as well. I don't need to stand inside of my car. I'll just go outside to stand. So yeah, I'll definitely go with a smaller car, but I do want like electricity and solar panels. So I guess
Yeah.
I do want to be able to charge my phone in my home.
Exactly. So what, if you go now to Paris or the next stop that you're going to work, will you say, I'm going home and actually still mean Vienna and have like a place with friends or family, or is Vienna not going to be home at all anymore?
Well, Vienna, as I was born there and lived like except for the traveling, I lived mostly all of my life there. It will always kind of be my home if somebody asks me because it's just the easiest answer. I don't have to explain all of this. But I do not feel like it's gonna feel like home
Yeah.
anymore. I think it's more. I mean, Paris will probably not feel like home either because it's way too expensive to ever be my home.
Yeah.
um, and also the Paris now, it's just the first stop. It's basically friends of mine are coming over from America and they want to see a little bit of Western Europe. And they just gave themselves 10 days, so it's going to be a hectic Chinese trip, basically. But we're going to be in Paris for 1 or 2 days, and then we go to like Belgium and they want to go to Amsterdam and they want to go to Germany and blah blah blah. I told them it's gonna be tough in 10 days,
Yeah.
but whatever they want, I'll try and help them.
They probably think
um,
it's smaller than it actually is.
yeah, for sure. I told them already though, so they did already throw out some countries because I was like, well, 10 days is not enough for what you have planned. It's not gonna work.
But that's
But
awesome.
yeah, it should be nice anyway.
Yeah, so in the preparation for this podcast, I was reading a little bit on what the actual definition of the word home is, and
Okay.
the first thing that popped up on Google was the place where one lives permanently, especially as a member of a family or household. So that made me
Oh.
think a little, and I was like, so are we because we are not thriving for this kind of life and having this permanent life, does it mean because we're not actually having a family yet? Will it change if we like? I mean, I personally, I'm not looking to have children, so for me it's a whole different situation probably as well. But is it something that you think once there is a family and a partner, that is then the point when you have to find a place where you live permanently?
Oh, that's so interesting. I think it's cool because yeah, home is like this attachment to other people as well makes a lot of sense and permanent and blah. Um, I used to want children, and right now I'm actually the same as you mindset. Like I'm like, nah, I don't know, no, I don't want that. It seems like a lot of work. No, um, but I can see that if you have a family, you should like for basically for the development of a child. I don't know if you know this, but I used to be a kindergarten teacher.
All right.
So psychologically for a child, it's I mean for the first few years it doesn't matter because they actually don't care much about socializing with other children. But if like as soon as they're kindergarten or school age, it's really good for the child to be just in like in one steady place where it can make friends and stuff. So yeah, I think if you have a family, it should be the point where you're like, okay, now I should choose my favorite spot, basically.
Because if that's the case, and I had the same kind of thinking there, that would mean that if you are as we are, like without a family, that the normal state would be to do what exactly we're doing, right? Not having a home.
Yeah, I feel like isn't it a kind of a it's like the new trend anyway, isn't it? It's it kind of I feel like I mean it's not a trend yet. It's not like everybody's doing it, but I feel like it's a thing that a lot of young people want to do and they don't really dare to do it because their parents are holding them back because they tell them some horror stories about somebody being kidnapped in
Yeah.
I don't know where. And it's just like people want to do it, but they don't. I feel like everybody wants to do it because everybody I talk to and tell them what I'm doing, they're super excited and they're like, oh, I want to do that too, but they don't actually do it. I don't
Exactly.
know
They
why.
want to see you as a guinea pig first, see how it
Yeah, for
goes.
sure.
But this is an interesting topic because the other thing that I found was that quite often people consider the home their identity, and I think there's a change in society in a way. As you said, it's not like a proper trend yet, but it's starting to focus on and crystallize a little bit that what was in the past a sign of luxury and richness and wealth
Mm,
was to have the bigger house, the bigger car, and have more and more stuff. While
mm.
nowadays it seems like what is more being seen as luxury and living a rich life is being free to go wherever you want at any time.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, it's funny that you say that people are like attached to their home more. I feel like Austrians and Germans are way less patriotic for historical reasons.
Yeah.
So I feel like we might be um, a, a step forward in front of other countries by like not giving so much of a damn where we actually come from, because it's not like we're emotionally attached to the place because we kind of feel bad for what happened. So I don't know, maybe because Germans always travel so much. I feel like everywhere you hear Germans, it's like it doesn't matter which place you're in, there's gonna be some Germans
It's
around.
it's true. Yeah, what I learned when I left Germany back then to actually leave the country was I got a job in Dublin after just 1 week because it was the middle of the Celtic Tiger over there, and back then Germans did not leave Germany, so it was still like a
Really?
yeah, it was still they'd rather stay in Germany and complain about stuff than actually taking the step and trying to find like a better life. So for me, like they almost rolled out a red carpet when they heard I'm German, and I had a job like after a week. They're so fast. So nowadays it's a bit different. Germans are out and traveling more and exploring the world more and seeing what else is out there. But it's funny, see like how the difference of the term home. When I actually just said home as identity, I actually meant the home as the house, right? That you own as your home, and you went to use that term for the country that you're from, right? As home.
Yeah.
So there's like, all these different ways how to interpret the word home. But yeah, so definitely, like it's. I mean, it is the country that you're from, which is home, and it gives you identity. But a lot of people see the house that they build around themselves as their identity as well, like almost like an extension of their own self. And
Mm.
and this was actually that I read as well. Like so, it's basically an extension of who you are. So then it made me think. So if you do not want to have this house as an extension of yourself, and considering that extension is something that is happening either way, or it's something that you want to do, does it mean that nomads like us or like others are extending more to the inside and like trying to explore more experiences and maybe knowledge?
That's funny that you say to the inside because before all of this happened, before I actually started even thinking about van life and no house life and nothing, and tiny houses and everything, the first thing actually I was very interested in philosophy because my roommate at the time was studying philosophy and I was like, this is really interesting. She's so smart. I want to be smart. So that was really interesting. And then I got into the what I feel like is kind of the opposite and at the same time it's part of it, which is meditation, where you just like think, try not to think too much. And that's kind of turning inwards. And from that place, when I meditated more and I went to a silent retreat in a monastery for 3 days and blah, blah, blah. And from that place, I kind of felt, after that, I felt ready to just leave it all behind and be okay with just my inside and not so much of the outside.
Yeah, it is. It is super interesting. I had a similar I mean, this goes hand in hand with the minimalism anyway, right? Not having a home means you don't own a lot of physical items or material items. So I had this thing that when I gave a lot of things away, that all of a sudden I wanted to connect more with other humans. So it was almost like I made space inside of me for other people, and just like wanting to see how people were, like what's going on in their lives, which normally probably was taken up by actual material possessions. So it's quite an interesting, weird psychological thing that's happening there.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, every material possession is kind of something you have to also look after in a way. I mean, you have
Exactly.
to make sure it doesn't break, and like you're scared that you're gonna lose it and blah blah. And if you just don't have it, you're like, well, okay, I just don't have that now. I don't have to worry about it. It's yeah.
I was actually thinking. So what would you do? What do you think? How you would react if your storage unit would burn down?
Oh, oh my God. Um, well, I would be the only thing right now going through my mind. There's like, I to this trip because I was trying to keep it really low because I was taking some stuff that I still had of my sister's. I brought it to her place. I got one suitcase and I left it here. So I traveled extra light, and that means I didn't bring any of my cameras, which
Yeah.
means that's like the only thing right now I would be really like everything else I don't care. But like my cameras, it's like two GoPros and
Right.
the Canon, like a power shot Canon, but like I mean, but in the end, if I really think about it, um, I just get over it and buy like an actual proper big camera, and then that would be the only camera, and then that's it. And I would definitely have to buy some clothes though because I didn't bring much.
So
But
basically,
yeah,
everything is replaceable.
it's yeah, it's definitely replaceable because the only thing I always think about I actually used to think about that when I was a kid as well, because there's only if the house that I'm inside burns down, the only thing that I would cry over would be I got my mother died when I was young, and I got one of her rings when she
Yeah.
died. And that's like the only thing, and that's always with me. Like I
Yeah.
always have that with me anywhere I go, even when I'm working, it's in my bag. It's like it's always there. So there's basically no option this would stay behind
Right.
anywhere. So
So that's an
but that's
actual
like the
thing.
only thing
Yeah.
that I would. But even that, if you think about it, it wouldn't be the end of the world. It's just kind of like where you cry for a little while and then you get over it.
Yeah.
So
But yeah, I get that. Like I have sometimes this thought. So same kind of thing. If I'm in a house that's like that, is on fire. What do I grab when I run
mm,
out? And I usually just have two things, which is my MacBook and my iPhone. So I'm just completely also like the Apple thing. But it doesn't matter. It's not about the actual items. It's my connection to the world. It's my way of being creative and having creative outputs. Like right now, the podcast is being done on the MacBook. I will edit my vlog later on the MacBook, etc. I do my Instagram stuff on the iPhone. So it's more about that. But I'm trying to move everything. That's again about the digital declutter that I want to talk about at some point as well. I'm trying to move everything as well as possible onto the cloud, so that if like these material items disappear someday or get stolen or whatever, that it's absolutely not a big deal. I just have them replaced and that's it. But yeah, I completely get
yeah,
this more of a, like the ring. I don't have an item like that, but I think I understand, and I would treasure it the same way, I think.
yeah. I mean, and it's really a small thing, so I don't feel like it's a
Yeah.
big deal. But and I'm really interested in the digital declutter, by the way. So I'm looking
Cool.
forward to that one
Okay. I will.
because yeah,
I,
because like the documents you can scan them and everything. I started
exactly.
with that as well because it's just like there's one box in my storage unit which is basically just maps full of documents that I
Right.
can't just get rid of. And then there's obviously some you need to keep them original.
Yeah.
But most of them is really just like, do I really need the actual piece of paper, or can I just put it somewhere?
Yeah, it's like I feel like I want to talk about it once I concluded my experience with it. Then
Sure.
I will talk about it. But it's definitely an interesting one because our lives are more and more digital anyway nowadays. And yeah, while we're talking about digital, actually, where this is what I wanted to also conclude the podcast with is I was thinking of talking about digital nomads because this is actually something I have not concluded to becoming. Basically, it's a project that I'm on. I'm trying to move in the whole direction of becoming a nomad and also working while traveling. So this is something I'm very interested in, and I'm hoping that I can have an episode in the future where I talk to established digital nomads that have been doing this for years, maybe, and can talk about their experiences when it comes to that kind of life. So while talking about digital, if anybody is out there who wants to come on the podcast and tell about their experiences about living the digital nomad life, I'm very interested in hearing that. And Clara, for you and I set out to say, like, to figure out what is normal, and are we normal in wanting this and not the life with the house. What are your final thoughts on this?
I mean, the word normal in my, like, every time somebody asks me this or talks about this, I usually say, well, what is normal anyway? And not like the typical question everybody just asks, but like normal is just a construct of, like, it's basically a society thing. It's like a group of people and they decide what is normal based on what most of the people in that group do. So for me, knowing some people who actually do normal life, to me, I could actually consider saying I'm normal,
Yeah.
because like, if I only spend time with those people, I would be normal. But so normal is kind of like, and also I kind of prefer the word crazy anyway, because I feel like it has more options. If you're normal, it kind of feels like there's a set path for you, and if you consider yourself abnormal, then you have so many more options, and I prefer more options anyway.
That is an absolute great conclusion to all this. I love it, and I think it's a good point to say the people that you surround yourself with, right? It's basically that is the normal. But one thing that I think, and it's complete cliche, but I would like to first of all I say thank you, Clara, for being my guest, my first guest.
You're very welcome.
And I would actually like to say thank you to all the listeners out there and conclude this episode with a very standard, very cliche saying, home is where the heart is. Goodbye,
Oh
and
yeah, I know that.
talk to you soon. Bye-bye.